Friday morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Friday afternoon for those in the UK, I believe. This is Ray with OP Noobs, PC Gaming by PC Gamers. I'm joined with Enzo Scavone. Enzo, say hi, please.
Hi, guys. I'm over hands on Discord.
And the guests of honor who have been very patient will be joining us for the next 15-20 minutes, Mr. Shaun Reed and Shaun Walsh of VooFoo Studios.
Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Gentlemen, thank you for the time. So which Shaun is creative director and which Shaun is marketing and PR?
Shaun Reed's creative director. Shaun Walsh, marketing PR.
So very exciting to be speaking with you, gentlemen. Thank you. Mantis Burn Racing. Where do I start? Right. I'm going to just paint a picture for the viewers. About 14 months ago, this game is released, this title is released, which has gorgeous gameplay. Everybody loves it, mostly positive reviews on Steam. Shortlisted as a finalist for the TIGA Games Industry Awards in 2016. There's a lot to talk about. I would like to start, Shaun's, if you would, with you guys sharing how you came into VooFoo, and how Mantis Burn kind of grew up as a.
So I've been at VooFoo, I think 4 years. Been at 4 years this October. Yourself?
Yeah, almost 2 years to the day. I've been at VooFoo.
So VooFoo is celebrating our 10th anniversary this year, but we haven't been here for the full duration of that.
10 years, a decade in game development studio timeframes.
Yeah, which is pretty good for an indie studio, I think. It's a volatile area of the industry, so I think we're doing pretty good. I come from a AAA studio. I was at Rare for 17 years, so massive Micro Machines, mashed fan. Came here, we were kind of making a lot of pool games, a lot of chess games, those kind of games that do really well, but kind of said, what kind of game would you like to make? And I've always wanted to make a racing game. I've kind of made pretty much every other kind of game there is, except for a racing game. So I spoke nicely to the guy in charge, and we made a racing game. So we knew that we were never going to go up against. I mean, when we started this game, there was probably 6 people working on it. So we knew we were never going to go against Gran Turismo or Forza or anything like that. So the top-down racer had been the genre had been quite quiet for a while. So yeah, that was the birth of Mantis. So.
Yeah, and I've worked in the games industry for quite a few years as well. Different publishers, sort of recently Bandai, Namco, Disney, other places. But yeah, I came in to set up the kind of marketing and PR side of the company. There wasn't really that function before, and Mantis Burn's the first game we've published ourselves. So obviously we needed that expertise in house. So I've released lots of games over the years, lots of different, including racing games. So yeah, it was a nice challenge to come in and set it up from scratch. Really, all the marketing and PR department and be able to publish our own games is obviously a big thing for us, and something we want to be doing as a developer. Developers want to be publishers and vice versa, really. So yeah, we've got that capability now, and Mantis Burn's done pretty well, actually. So that's how I came to VooFoo. What I do here, really. So.
It sounds like an Enzo. I know that you have probably a million questions to ask. I wanted to get a quick word in here that you have on one hand, you have one Shaun who comes into it with, as you said it yourself, it's been a very quiet genre. Top-down racing is a little distinct and unique in that sense. What would you say is the most recent kind of hallmark top-down racer title?
Well, since we launched, there's a new Micro Machines just quite recently come out. Yeah. Before that, we were looking at games. I don't know if you can remember MotorStorm RC.
Yes.
It's based on the MotorStorm franchise. The top-down racer, which is really pretty looking game as well. So
you've got to bring a lot of initiative into that, because you have to kind of define to the audience what the experience is going to be like, and then the other Shaun, Mr. Shaun Walsh, is coming in, as you said, with a marketing and PR function in the company that was also not defined. And so it seems like you guys both have the common denominator of initiative, and there's an element of independence because it's risky to just go out and do those kinds of things. But I wanted to turn it over to Enzo for his questions here.
Yeah, in fact, when you suggested the concept of the game, what were the indicators that indicated to you guys that this would not just fall into a void, but find like resonance with the player community?
Yeah, if I'm honest, the very first game that VooFoo ever worked on, they pitched a racing game that never came about, and it was actually called Mantis Burn. So that's how the name came about, and that's 10 years ago. And Mark, who owns the company, he only worked on racing games before. Yeah. He worked for Juice Games. He worked on a lot of the Ford racing games. So he had an awful lot of experience making racing games. Well, I mean, VooFoo was renowned for making very graphically kind of pleasing games. The pool games and the chess games that were made, that were kind of led the market with the visuals. So kind of thought, what genre of game can we bring that level of graphical fidelity to? With, and I'll be honest with you, when we first started out, we had one artist, so he was really busy for quite a while. So I also wanted to bring that element of the art. I think Shaun's mentioned it in the RPG element. So a lot of top-down races are considered to be very arcadey, micro machines. You've got big hammers hitting the other vehicles and rockets and all that kind of thing. And I know we've just added battle cars, but what I wanted to make was a game that was very grounded in physics. So it's not really an arcade game. It surprises a lot of people when they pick up the controller, kind of how much kind of fidelity there is in the control, and how much you need to learn the way that the vehicles interact with the tracks and the different surfaces and that kind of thing.
So you were
bringing it a little bit different, something a bit different to the genre. Yeah.
So you were able to rely on some sort of prestige that you had from earlier titles, or a name that you made for yourself in terms of graphic fidelity, as you termed it, and apply that to the new title.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, all our games are created using our own in-house engine. Okay.
I think, and Enzo, that's a good point that you and Reed had just brought up, and I'd like to get Mr. Walsh's opinion on that, because it sounds like you kind of, maybe Shaun, Reed, maybe you did this deliberately, but it sounds like you developed what they call a blue ocean strategy for this genre, because most top-down racers are going to be cartoony and very formulaic, and then you have the Forza, very true-to-life racing genre over here, where the guys who drop 15,000 in the... But you've created a genre that doesn't try to steal from either one of those, but offers a new experience where players can kind of dip into that. Has that been something that you've worked with in a marketing perspective, Walsh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we have, as Shaun was explaining, we do have... The aim was to create something a little bit different. So if we just release another top-down racing game, which is perhaps like some of the earlier games you described, we wouldn't have really been very confident, So I guess the indicators of the confidence came from the fact we've got, like you say, we've got the pedigree, we've got some real talent in the studio. We're a small team, we're a tight team, but we work really well, and we've got a reputation. But as Shaun said, we can bring what we're good at to a genre which is a little bit sort of forgotten in a way, a little bit sort of retro. But bring it up to date and really sort of refresh it, and it gives us a strong USP, and I think that's definitely what we played on, and more importantly, I think it's what people really took from the game. But people are still really quite surprised at the level of, the career seasons. There's like 12 career seasons now. There's the RPG style upgrades and the leveling up, and there's there's a lot of it. It looks fantastic, it plays fantastic, it's physics based. So and we're supporting it even a year, over a year later, we're still supporting an indie game, with DLC, which is a lot of time and effort and some risk for us, really. So I think people appreciate that, hopefully. And it is risky, yeah. But I think that's part of indie gaming, isn't it? It's part of being an indie developer. You have to kind of take risks, because that's where you have to be bold. That's where the kind of success comes from, and the glory, and the not to mention the profit sometimes. So that's.
I think that's related to Fred and I were hanging out one night this past week, and we were philosophizing on nature, and I was talking about morality. I said there's no implicit morality in nature, and as you said with the indie market, there's risk. There's no implicit morality in what games take off and what don't. There have been beautiful gems of games that are, as Enzo said, they fall into the void, and it's gone because every day there's 50 new games out, right? And then there have been these garbage titles that I shall not name that are just loved by the world over, So it is risky, and I'm glad to see that you guys. Has it been a success for you guys from a company perspective to invest these resources in it?
Yeah, I think it has. I mean, obviously, we'd like to see more. It'd be more successful, and that's why we're supporting it. But we've got a solid game. People are playing it. We'd like some things to have gone better, obviously, but it's not. We don't have AAA budgets. We do a lot of things through love and blood, sweat, and tears. So it's been a success. Yeah, absolutely. We'd have wanted more, of course, but something that's enabled us.
What are some of those things that you would have liked to have gotten better that didn't go over so well?
Well, I don't think anything so much in the marketing. I mean, in terms of the reach, obviously, you always want to reach more people. You always want to sell more copies, but it's we don't have sort of massive marketing budgets to invest in things, just because that is risky, obviously. And
have there been features or choices that you've had to make in the game? Maybe Reed, as creative director, where you've had to deliberately allocate resources? Because as OP Noobs, we talk to the smallest, tiniest little developers ever, and we always hear them say, "Yeah, I wish I had multiplayer. I don't have the budget. I don't have the resources." Were you guys constrained in that sense, or did you?
Well, I mean, regarding the initial game design, it's kind of exactly what I wanted at the time. So when we were pitching the idea, or when we were saying we're making a top-down racing game, almost everybody, from investors to publishers to the public, said, "Oh, what weapons are there?" And I'd be like, "There are no weapons." And they say, "What do you mean? You're a top-down racer. You must have weapons." And I say, "No, we're making a race."
Did they all the investors started to leave the party after that? Wait, no weapons?
Exactly. Some of them, yeah. So I said, no. We had a very kind of strong vision that this was going to be a racing game, and we were using our physics engine, and it was going to be something that you learned and got better at all the time. That was the whole thing, that the more you played, the more you upgraded your vehicle, the more you learned the tracks, you got better and better. It wasn't like a random getting hit by a blue shell just before you go over the finish line and lose the race.
Yeah.
But, saying that, people bought the game, said, "Yeah, really like the game. It'd be great with weapons." So I held back on it quite a while, but then I started thinking about how could we add weapons to the game, but that kept the level of skill and the level of kind of the depth that I wanted throughout the whole game. So we haven't got homing missiles. We haven't got anything like that. If you want to shoot somebody with your forward-facing gun, you need to mirror the movements they're making through the track.
So snipe them out.
Yeah, I always wanted to keep it. I didn't want I win button just because you're at the back of the pack. It was never.
I heard you guys have a unique weapon that is in no other game. It's a spiky blue shell that goes to the.
Yeah, that's a secret weapon that you unlock after you played it for 1,000 hours.
But I want to turn it over to Enzo, because not only is he always engaging the industry as a business developer at OP Noobs, but he's also a journalist first, before Fred steals him out of my department. And he's writing a piece on e-gaming, which is going to be the future of competitive sports. With the physicality of society, be like, we don't want anyone to get injured or whatever. Go to e-gaming. You've both Reed and Walsh have discussed, and I've heard it very frequently recently with the games for PC and porting and console. there is a very specific control that joysticks give you. And the thumb, for humans, is its own muscle that you can't really mimic in keyboard. So I know that you guys have been really engaging that competitive aspect of your title. And as you said just a few moments ago, Reed, the longer you play, the better you get, the better you know the handling and everything. How has the competitive scene been for Mantis Burn Racing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd agree that what we were saying earlier, that we would love to see more people playing online. I think a lot of players are really enjoying the single player campaign, and we did make a big deal of the single player campaign. But what we'd really like to see is more people engaging on the online side of things.
Exactly, yeah. There is, as Shaun's saying, there's 4-player local split screen, which is great, but the online element hadn't really taken off as much as we'd like. We've tried to help that along and nurture it along, and we are actually doing some things within sort of e-gaming, esports at a later date. It's kind of coming, working with platform holders, but we're not quite there yet, and that hasn't really taken off as much as we'd like, because I guess we haven't got the mass player base, which is going to give people, make sure people are online concurrently in sort of large numbers. So, but we're trying to improve that, and we've got some things coming which hopefully will. And it is, I mean, the game at source is very competitive, and it's never more fun than split screen or playing with your mates online. So that's where the game sort of should really live and breathe, in the competitive side of it, because it's so much fun. Oh, yeah. So much fun playing against your friends and sort of, you're punching the air and shouting at the screen. So we do want to nurture that a bit more, and we are trying, and we've done some things over the last sort of 12 months, but we've got some, hopefully some bigger things, some events-based stuff, which we can hopefully tap into to get people online at the same time, and maybe even offer prizes here and there. So, we're trying to improve that.
We totally agree with you, though, regarding esports. We see that as the future, definitely, of this style of game. And you've got to remember as well, the other games we've made in the past, like pool games, that we think that games like that would be amazing in that kind of environment as well. So competition's really what's grabbing people in gaming.
So in general, it's really hard. The studios that I speak to that try to get into esports, it's really hard to establish, first of all, a name that people know that offers competitions, but also to find athletes that play the game and influence other players to tag along. If you were just to throw out some ideas, how would you go about creating these communities, and especially how would you compete with the big names in esports like Blizzard, ESL, things like that? How would you take a share of the
either compete or cooperate with?
Yeah.
I think the one main vital ingredient is that to have a game that's so good people talk to other people about it.
Yeah.
So as soon as you've got a game that people talk about, then they talk to other people and they talk to other people. And
that's a very English sentiment, sir, if I may. all the British studios we talk to, we're just going to make a game that's so amazing the whole world is going to love it. And they always do. They always do. They deliver.
What would you say in Mantis Burn is a mechanic that encourages competitive gaming, competitive online gaming?
What was that? What was
in your game? What would have you thought about when you developed the game? What mechanic really speaks to the esports scene and encourages competitive gaming?
The whole game was based from the ground up to be competitive and to bring that competitive element. And like I said, we always intended it to be 8-player online, 4-player split screen. I mean, we were kind of, as well as resurrecting the top-down racer, we also kind of resurrected. We wanted to think that people were still playing local couch multiplayer. So four controllers, split the screen down 4, like going back to GoldenEye days. But how popular that is, but it was very a feature
popular, that very popular.
Yeah.
I did want to. So I know you guys are tight on time. I think
That's cool.
They're closing happy hour in like 20 minutes over in the UK. So we want to get you out of there. It's been a tough week, but I wanted to pivot over to the community's questions. So our PR team here reached out to we got 3 questions from Cat Smoke, Aussie Droid, and Cuck with an exclamation point, which is, I like that, KUK. They've submitted some questions that have been vetted. Let me just start with the simplest one. Two words. Cuck asks, Linux support.
Good question, crikey. What is it? What have I got to answer it?
That's good.
Yeah, we've you probably might have seen we've across sort of Steam we've had quite a few people requesting it, which is great to see. So it's something we'd like to do, and it's something I know we're looking into and hoping to do. I don't think we're quite promising it yet, but I know the guys have been trying to work on it and trying to work out the feasibility of doing it. And it's the more feedback we get, the more enthusiasm we get for Linux, which seems to be out there actually, then the more likely we are to be able to do that. So I'm hopeful we can do it, yeah, but we're not quite committing to it yet. But yeah, it's something we're listening and we're trying to respond to it.
Okay, and I wanted to ask the Cat Smoke. Actually, you guys already answered his question or her question. They asked, "What's the explanation of this game's unusual name?" Which is kind of an undead title that came back from 10 years ago. But
No, there's actually a deeper meaning to it than that. The only reason, so the reason it's called Mantis Burn is Mantis is the name of our in-house graphics engine.
Oh, nice.
So we called it Mantis Burn Racing for a code name for the project, and then we would come up with a better name at the end of the project. We had many, many meetings in local pubs to decide what we were going to call it other than Mantis Burn Racing, and we couldn't come up with anything that we liked better because we'd been calling it that for the last 16 months or something, so it kind of stuck.
Nice.
That was it. But nice. The only thing, Mantis is our in-house engine.
So for the longest time, it was on your Scrum board as Project Mantis, and then it just became Mantis Burn.
It literally stuck. Yes.
We just stuck racing on the end of it. So it seemed to work.
We got to come up with something for that Mantis racing game. Hey, you might be onto something.
It was called Mantis Burn. We were pitching the game to be as called Mantis Burn. So we spent 3 months, and the result of that 3 months was to stick racing on the end.
There comes a point where you got to create logos and submit logos, so we just thought we'll do it. We'll go with Mantis Burn Racing.
And you picked your own engine because all the resources in the studio, all the game devs, the programmers, they all knew it inside and out, right?
Yeah.
We made our own engine. It's our engine, so it's all been written from the ground up over a period of 10 years. We're still using it for the games we're developing now. So
I think that's how you get, that's one of the many little pieces that comes together for the freshness that Walsh had mentioned earlier, because everything you see now is, you're like, oh, okay, that's Unity, or oh, okay, that's Unreal.
Yeah, exactly. You can tell. You can look at the game and tell what engine it's based on. Yeah, absolutely.
Enzo, you were going to say something.
Yeah, so there's a third question that we had from the forums, from the community threads. Aussie Droid. That was Aussie Droid. He has a rather specific question about the mechanics. You can upgrade the cars. You have slots to upgrade them. Can you tell us a little bit about the classes, and especially, and that's what Aussie Droid asks, what are good setups for the cars?
So in the top vehicles, I think there's about 300,000 possible combinations.
Oh wow!
So I don't think we've tried them all. So I guess he means what the different class of upgrade, yeah? Or the different class of
I guess he's looking for like a good combination of upgrades. What, like, as you play the game, what have you experienced to be a good combination of upgrades?
It's different for what type of vehicle it is. It's different to what type of track that you're taking that vehicle onto. The permutations are massive, and that's kind of the whole kind of ideology of the game from the ground up for the player to.
how did you test that to balance that?
Over a long period of time.
Painfully, Ray. Painfully.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the way I did it was that I took the extremes of everything. So if you imagine the top vehicles have got 18 upgrade slots. So I said, okay, what would this vehicle be like with 18 engine upgrades? And so what I wanted as well was there to be a bad setup. I didn't. If you think about it, in a lot of racing games, you can only ever improve a vehicle if you kind of add power to an engine. But what I wanted you to do to be have unstable balances. So if you've got 18 slots of engines, it's pretty much undrivable. You will, especially on the ice circuits, you'll just stay still. Your wheels will spin and you won't go anywhere. So I wanted the player to experiment and come up with their kind of best setups. I mean, we've seen one guy. We've got one guy in Denmark. Yeah, there's a guy in Denmark, and we actually started an investigation on him because we thought he was cheating. The times that he was setting were like so much better than what we could set, or kind of what anybody could set. We kind of got in touch with him. You got in touch with him, and he sent us screenshots of his vehicles, and they was set to perfection. And he was shaving off 5 seconds a lap of what we could even get close to, and that's exactly kind of the thing what the whole aim of the game was in the first place. So.
There's always that one god level player.
Yeah,
yeah.
The chosen one.
The chosen one. There's always that one Zab in Verdun. And Super Boom fan in Smash 64. There's, gentlemen, it has been a supreme pleasure to host your company. I know it's been a long week. I wanted to tell the audience the new Mantis Burn Racing DLC. It looks like it just improves everything. It's got comprehensive improvements in usability, improved loading time, vehicle collision, new random event options, track names, gear changes. You guys have Shaun and your team have clearly put in a lot of work into the title and continue to put in a lot of work into the title. And I wish that you continue to find that success. I'll give it over to Enzo and then to you guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you guys for talking to us. Ray, what do you want me to do?
Oh, no. Just one more note. Our review is on the way on opnews.com. You can check it out. But please, gentlemen, if there's any closing words you'd like to give the audience, please.
That's great.
No, thank you. Thanks for your time. If anybody wants to, speak to us over Twitter or, email, we're quite friendly. We'll talk to people, answer questions, So we'll look out for your review. So hopefully it's good. So your viewers can get a good insight into the game a bit more. As I said, any questions at VooFoo on Twitter, happy to answer them. So thanks for your time.
At VooFoo on Twitter, facebook.com/VooFoo, VooFoo Studios.com, Shaun Reed and Shaun Walsh. Thank you, gentlemen. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.